talk about live, forward, backwards, introduce the guests, exit the guests, introduce the guests, and now, everybody go!
Clearly, that's the best theme song ever. Hi guys, welcome to Putty. Yeah, okay. Woo. You can say woo many times today if you care to. It's not my thing, but it could be yours. Yeah, I'm Erin K. Drew. Every day I look out the window and I say, I am the only man who ever lived. And so first of all, I want to make sure that you're in the right place. So Putty isn't a deranged hardcore band where shirtless man is gonna yell in your face for the next 15 minutes. So are we like on the same? If like we're perfectly clear on that, like we're good. If not, you know, you can go anytime you want. But lock the doors. No, I don't know. That's the joke. I feel like if Putty was a band, ideally it would just be like 4 Yoko Onos. So there'd be like guitar, bass, drums. One of them that just like punches the tambourine like really hard, and then that's a War Pig's heart. But and they all do vocals, obviously. So yeah, good. So I like to start the show by talking about why Putty. What is Putty? Why is Putty? And people who've seen the program before probably know my elevator speech. I feel like I've gotten kind of like Don Draper good at it. Like it's gotten kind of unctuous where it's like, okay, so there are a couple materials that I look at for inspiration. First of all, museum putty, which is it's used in exhibitions. It has utility. It's used to adhere sculptures to pedestals, to sort of prop up pieces of artwork. It's essential, but it enjoys a very low role in a high institution, and sort of underrated, undersung. And also, silly putty is another material that I like to look to for its qualities, both of uselessness, which I think is also underrated, and its ability to appropriate and distort. So, you know, we all have the experience of laying it across the Sunday comics, and then you get to smush Dagwood's face into, you know, crazy shapes. So, and this is what we hope to do with the talk show medium tonight. So, also with putty, it's a sticky substance. It keeps growing. I like to imagine that we're sticking all these people together in this space, and there's kind of like a lot of value and a lot of excitement to me in live space and in people from many different places meeting at this sort of unlikely crossroads, just kind of like this friendly, scuzzy bar that we can all, you know, kind of talk live, talk in awkward time. There'll be mistakes, there'll be moments of non-entertainment, and those are what I live for. So, yeah, just awkwardness, look for it, you know, circle it, double tap it. But yeah, it'll be a night of hopefully deconstructing entertainment and just kind of looking at material and materiality, the material conditions of creating art. So I've also been thinking that just kind of as like other institutions, we name names, but we won't right this moment, sort of dumb down programming, what it means to kind of take a deeper dive, or kind of take for institutions or non-institutions or entities that are on the fringe to kind of go deeper, do something of more substance. And so that's kind of substance, whatever substance is with its tactile qualities, is something that I'm excited about tonight. So I don't feel good. I've been like kind of getting sick all week, but I was like, no matter what, I'm gonna do the show, and just in any degree of health. So it might be like one of those episodes of This American Life where you can just hear like Ira Glass just like sputtering germs all over the microphone, and it's just like, dude, go home. Like, you know that like Diane Rehm is gonna come on next, and she like has to touch that after you, and she's already so frail. I feel like maybe my immunity has kind of been worn down because I was traveling recently. I was in LA for a week. I got to go to yeah, woo. No, I got to go to a conference, which was great. And if I look different, it's because I am different. Because I used a wealthy gallerist's bidet. Every time I tell my stories about LA, people say I should lead with that. So the bidet at the gallerist's home was adjacent to the iguana room. The iguana, I assume, was also named Bidet. So. Traveling's great. I learned so much about the world in my body. Oh yeah, I like to start with an object report. So this week, this edition, this hot object I'd like to tell you about. Okay, so I was talking to a friend about how I feel about miniatures and just that basically I want to put them in my mouth. And I was talking about, so the Ruth Lilly Library at Indiana University has this really extensive collection of tiny books. Has anyone ever seen this? The tiny books? And they're so small. They're so small. And like initially they made me furious because I was like, why is the book so small? And then they made me intrigued, and it was like, now I want to put it in my mouth. And then like the third part was just sort of learning more about their history, which like controversial material. You samizdat. This is the way you can transport subversive content. It's through a tiny book that you maybe stitch into the edge of your clothing or something. So they have their merits, but nonetheless, miniatures. I have this thing that I want to do with them, which is put them in my mouth. And so a friend informed me that Herrington Vinyl, had this tiny collection of banned books, and I was like, no, they don't. And lo and behold, we walked over there. And it wasn't a collection of tiny banned books, but they have tiny banned books that are actually books of matches. So that's like not what you put in your mouth, but also it has its own utility and intrigue. And I was like, that's a good object. That's a good novelty. And I feel like ever since I kind of like put out there that I'm really into novelties, they've been coming back to me, and that's really exciting. So feel free to if there's ever like utility, if there's ever novelties that you want to tell me about, please, by all means, put them up for submission. I'd be happy to report on them in object reports in the future. But no, I think that's basically my introductory chores for now, so we can roll up our sleeves and just get through these interviews, right? Yeah. Cool. So, my first guest ran a shop called printtext, important cornerstone of brick and mortar space that sold small run print, and they've also done a lot of publishing. They produce Didactic, they produce Asymmetry, they produce an Indianapolis Guide to the City. I'm excited to talk to them about future projects and beyond. Can we please welcome Ben and Janneane Blevins? Hey guys. This is the part where we get to like dick around with microphones. They make like bonking sounds, and it's good.
Is that okay? Is that okay? Not okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Do you want one, Ben?
Hello. Hi. Hi.
Yay.
I think that works.
This is working. We're pulling it off.
Hi.
Hi.
Yay.
Fantastic.
Hi. we brought you something.
Oh boy. Oh my god!
It's a book by one of our favorite LA woman. What is
Woman,
that? How
yeah.
do you phrase that? Eve Babbitt. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I actually
enjoy
saw
it.
this when I was at a bookstore in LA, and I was like, that's the writer that
yes,
Janneane recommended to me, so
Cool.
thank you so much.
she has many. So we'll have to talk about it.
They've recommended Eve Babbitt's to me in the past, and I'm excited. Thanks, guys.
Yay.
Oh, yeah. Do you feel like I introduced you fairly? I tried to be impartial.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You still have one more month of running the shop. So
Okay.
if you were really sad and that was the first time you heard the news and you haven't said goodbye to printtext, the shop yet, then you can come see us through December 15th.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry to do it this way. I didn't even think that this could possibly be people's first opportunity here.
It could be. Who knows? I mean, we announced it a couple weeks ago, but yeah.
So would you care to, I mean, break it to him gently, but
We're closing the shop December 15th. And we have a party on December 8th. Y'all are welcome to come.
Yeah.
so you said the shop ran for 3 years?
4 years.
4. That's massive. Yeah. I guess when I met with you guys recently, we were kind of talking about sunsetting and kind of this idea about like how one closes or ends a project, and if that's something that you do intentionally or it's something that you sort of have to do or have to do haphazardly. And so I wanted to ask you sort of about when you started the project of printtext, what was your vision for it long term, and like was sustainability a goal?
I mean, it's probably both. It's not quite haphazard, but it also wasn't like planned from the beginning to end now. But also 4 years feels like a good time to end. And even at the very beginning, we never were like, this is what we want to be doing in 5 or 10 years. Like, I'm not good at that, and it's not our strong suit. Or yeah, it was just something that was really interesting to do. Kind of was started on a whim. And I mean, sustainable. I don't know. It survived for 4 years, but it
Right.
also is like kind of draining. And yeah, I don't know.
And its model is pretty straightforward, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's probably one of the easiest things that you can go start. You don't need lots of special permitting or licensing. I think we said we want to do a magazine shop in the space below where we live, and 1 month later we opened up the magazine shop. So we just got right on it, and it was pretty easy to just pull it together and go from there. And then I think Ben said it well, that you just kind of, I think with all projects, you just kind of have to like check in as you go along and see if it still makes sense to do.
Totally.
And I think printtext, the shop, was like a super like exploratory type of thing for us. It was always about getting to connect with different people who are doing really cool things and using the physical space and the physical object of a magazine to do that.
how regularly do you think you did those kind of check-ins to see if you were hitting goals? And by this I don't mean monetary ones, but
I'd say about once a year, at least. And this last year, probably more often than that, because we knew that this part of it needed to wind down. So I think that's why we were like checking in, like, how does it feel now? How does it feel now? And then finally we were like, okay, now we're ready to like move on from this part of what we've been doing.
do you feel like you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish with the project? And to back up a bit, like, was there anything that you really hoped to sort of foreground other than to have a magazine shop under where you live, which check.
That would work.
Yeah.
I feel like we probably walked away with more than what we expected. But that's also because there was probably not too much planning on the front end, so we were just hoping for the best. And then I think the events were probably the biggest surprise for us, something that we hadn't really factored in as something that was going to be so important to what we did. And we ended up being able to collaborate with a lot of cool people and open up our space. And yeah.
I would say that it was successful. I mean, just because pretty much everything that we want to do going forward were not things that we considered doing 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, so whether it was publishing or Janneane designing things or playing with weird animations or anything. Like, none of those were things that were really in our heads as things that we could or wanted to do 4 years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, those just happened because we had a lot of time on our hands sitting in the shop waiting for people to come.
That is like, I mean, that's obviously the awesome part about like a brick and mortar space, and the awesome part about that kind of project where it's like unexpected things kind of get caught in your orbit and unexpected interactions happen so densely in ways that you could never really plan for.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there are like any favorite moments or favorite events that you wanted to touch on, just sort of reflect on.
Well, Cherry Bomb was a really fun one that we got to do a couple times, and that's a magazine based out of New York, and they focus on women working in the food industry, so it might be a chef or somebody who blogs about food or owns a restaurant or just really, really loves food, and that's their medium. And they just started around the same time we did, and so we had these kind of really similar paths, and they came to Indianapolis to do a couple events with us, and I feel like those were ones where you kind of see a community transforming off the pages, just all the work that they do, and kind of just having them there, I think, gave a lot of women who came to the shop just like that extra boost or something that they needed to go forward and do their own work. And so those will hold a special place in my heart for always just seeing those women come together and feel good about what they were doing.
Yeah, having all those people in one space. I mean, that is sort of like, that is how you create a community.
Yeah.
Ben, anything else come to mind that was exciting to you?
Gosh. Yeah, I mean, there were so many things, whether it was syntax season with Michael Milano and Elizabeth Smith, who were on the show last month before they fled the Midwest. But yeah, I mean, that was really great. I mean, we got to have amazing art in the shop, and neither of us are really curators or understand enough about art to do that, so it was amazing to have like 2 people move here from Chicago and like contact us and start working on it. Gosh, FAF Collective has like packed out the space with the best readings ever, and yeah, Ari will be up here in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, gosh, things like that, it's really cool to like see things growing, and you get to like grow alongside them and like learn things together and figure things out together, and yeah, it's been amazing like that.
I know you said that the projects that you're sort of moving on to next are mostly born out of people that you met or people that you worked with through printtext, through the physical space. So do you want to leak to us a little bit about like what you've got on deck next?
Totally. So we're kind of looking at exploring like 2 different things that kind of sprung out of the shop, and one is the publication, so being like a really collaborative publisher, whether that's doing design with an artist or a person who has something that they want to share, or even in another way, just like editing and finding content and working with another artist or designer in that way. So we're excited. We have a couple projects lined up for next year. One is with Stuart Hyatt, and it's going to be called The Omniphonic Reader, and it'll come out next fall. And it's a book that accompanies 7 albums that he's made of field recordings from around the world, from like glaciers to volcanoes and caves and the state fair.
Gravitational waves,
yeah, make an appearance on the record. And that was a really fun project to work on. So it ended up going from a newspaper, like our didactic series, which would be maybe 20 pages, to now it's like a perfect bound 280-page book, which just kind of grew over the course of the year. And yeah, we're really excited for that one to come out. And then we have a couple other kind of similar art collaborative books in the pipeline that we'll be working on next year. Oh, and then the other path, which Ben should talk about, is more like the animation kind of and set design work that we like to do.
Yeah, right. I'm excited to foreground like your particular creative projects, because I feel like since you are in a facilitator role, often your design or your animation doesn't maybe get the spotlight on it. So yeah, I'd be interested to know what shape that's taking next.
I never really know. The animation things were like really just a way for me to, I don't know, take other people's design and pretend like part of it was mine because I bent it a little bit. But it's become another thing. It's been really fun, and yeah, we get to continue working with really amazing people. And between that, and it really was just an outgrowth. Actually, the animation started out of the set design, and there was a couple times where the set was like not good enough. It was kind of shitty, and I was like, oh, if I make it move, it doesn't matter. And so the animation's really sprung out of like a really mediocre set. They've gotten better than that, but
You're a problem solver.
yeah, or something.
So I'm always curious to talk to Indianapolis artists just sort of about like how place affects or doesn't affect like what you do or affects your practice. I know you've admitted to sort of feeling like now you're like super free and you don't have to be kind of rooted in one place now that the shop is
Yeah, we want to travel.
right. But I am curious, like, how does Indianapolis inform or influence how you make or what you make?
I think it's really intertwined right now. I think doing a print shop and having a magazine store, being in Indianapolis was super duper novel to everybody on the East Coast or West Coast or in Europe. They'll be like, "You're in Indianapolis?" Because that just doesn't happen very often. So I think, it's Indianapolis has been a great place for us to start that, and maybe somebody changes their expectations because of it, which is always a cool position to be in, to like
Totally.
change somebody's expectations about a place.
And it seems like the Indianapolis Guide was also kind of a project getting people to change their expectations about Indy.
Yeah, and that was a really cool project, and one that I wonder how it would have come together if we weren't in a place like Indianapolis, where you know somebody who knows the head of like Visit Indy and is able to say like, we'd like to help pay for printing it. You know, like just like those sorts of relationships with people like Michael Kaufman. You know, I mean, they feel really special to this place. Yeah. But then now, like thinking about Indianapolis as being like kind of a novelty to people outside of, I don't know, the Midwest, and then processing like, okay, so how does that age? You know, like how long can you be a novelty before it's like, I don't know.
What comes after novelty?
Yeah, and I don't know what that is.
No, that's interesting. Like, what comes after novelty? Like, genuine depth? I don't know. Like,
maybe.
Yeah, that's optimistic, I think. But I guess my next question for you, kind of related to place, is just what does Indy need more of or less of? I think Ben sort of thrills to be like a critic at times, which you know, I'm here for it. Like,
I can only do the less of thing.
No, you can do whatever you want.
Well, more artist-run spaces, and I think that's been a topic that's probably been talked about up here before, especially GPC. I think is definitely sorely missed. It's just a place where people could come and put together a show or expect to see something really wonderful and find their community. So I think that there's certainly places doing it. I just hope that there's more of them.
Less colorful apartments.
But they look so funky.
They do.
I don't think they'll
Those
age
will
well.
not age.
Those will not age well.
It's gonna look like a sad theme park.
Look like you live in the real world. Okay, so we had talked about doing games. I Fuck, Marry, Kill has been something we've done in the past. You had specifically requested we not do Fuck, Marry, Kill of different ways of feminism, so we won't. Overrated, underrated, correctly rated is also a game. And maybe we could just do that, because I think it could maybe be a useful springboard just for a conversation that maybe we're all chomping at the bit to have, but the way you win it, we determined, is by being the most opinionated, so.
Can you remind me how the hand signals work?
Yeah, right. So it's an update on rock, paper, scissors. So it's 1, 2, 3, shoot, but it'll be overrated, underrated, or correctly rated? And please,
Gets me every time.
It's mostly arbitrary, but don't tell them. So I'm gonna do overrated, underrated, correctly rated brick and mortar spaces. And then I would like you to defend your position. Defend your overrated, underrated, correctly rated. Okay, so you're holding microphone. Oh, nice. All right, can we do it?
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Quick Janneane. Okay. Janneane, I noticed that you said underrated. Well, Benjamin said overrated.
This is why we're going out of business.
Ben, why are brick and mortar spaces overrated?
I don't know, because the way that they're talked about, like, feels like they're the savior for everything that's wrong. The same way people talk about buying local, and I mean, it just, I don't know, like, they're used as a euphemism for a lot of other things that are wrong. And brick and mortar in and of itself is not any better than an internet store. I mean, I realize there are better things about it, just like there are better things about other things, but I don't know. I don't.
And maybe particularly when we're talking about art spaces, there are other modes to operate, there are other sort of forms to take.
Yeah, I was just referring to like brick and mortar in general,
Oh,
not as art
mom and pop?
spaces.
Yeah. Okay. Does it change when
It's mom and pop?
Oh, when I say art spaces?
Maybe. Yeah, because I feel like
It's
that's
too late. You
important.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I obviously knew you were talking about art spaces.
I can tell. Janneane, would you like to defend your position?
Yeah, I think it was hyper personal. I think it was just the idea of seeing how much, how special the printtext space itself became to me, and how special other places around Indianapolis, GPC, things like that became, and the importance of gathering people, and kind of, to use a buzzword, because I know we like to talk about buzzwords,
I love
but
jargon. Yeah.
creating serendipity.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is unique to have that kind of most often in a way that you can really feel it in a physical space or an event or something that you walk into. I think I like that. I love planning, but I like the way that brings unexpectedness into my life, and often in a positive way.
That's awesome.
I completely agree.
Yay.
I was thinking more retail.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which it is, it's romantic to hold a book in your hands and smell it and stuff, or put it in your mouth. But, but yeah, no, I'm super excited to see how your projects mutate, how they change and grow and absorb other things. And I've loved so many things that I've been a part of at printtext. And yeah, I know your work is very valued. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Yay. Okay. All right. My next guest was third wave Jen, member of General Public Collective. She is one of the co-editors of Boss Off Boss zine and website. She has her hands in many projects. She's full of that positive mental attitude. And if you could please join me in welcoming Ari Attack to the stage. Hi. Grab a mic. Yay.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey. What's up? Thanks for coming out.
Ari, I wanted to talk about the last time you were on the stage because it was so cool.
I was drunk off hams.
It happened. Yeah.
I was, okay, so it was Shirley Chisholm night, and we had first of all, it was like such a monumentous night for Black women at State Street. So, because I was on stage ranting about Shirley Chisholm, who is an amazing black woman who was involved in politics. And also we had DJ Miss Alicia and DJ. Yeah. Is she here?
Yeah.
Oh shit! Hey girl. You were the shit. And then we had DJ Big Baby, and she was up here killing the game. So it was just like so cool for me to be in their presence, and then just me being on stage being like, you should know about Shirley Chisholm.
I loved it. Yeah. No, to clarify, so it was the Nasty Women Dance Party series.
Yes.
And it was the Shirley edition.
Yeah.
And so it was like you were wrapping in this history lesson into the night. So can you tell us like who Shirley Chisholm is real fast?
Shit.
Would you mind? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. No, it's
oh no,
we're on the show. I forget what she ran for, but
She ran for president.
She ran for president? Okay, damn, that's bad of me to forget. But thank you. So she ran for president, and as we all know, I mean, this was like what, in the '60s, so '50s maybe. Do you have
early '70s?
Early '70s. This is your doing. But anyway, so again, like that's even more important. So you know, especially as of the political climate now and where we are, especially with how blackness is viewed, it's like a black woman ran for president in the '70s.
Yeah.
Let's just clap for that, please. Clap for that. And literally, that was what that night was.
Yeah.
Black woman ran for president. Clap.
Right.
Here's the song.
But it was super good that it was just like, it was a dance party, but it was also a history lesson. It was this good, like, hybrid space. Also not the only time that, like, you've been on stage, or that we've, like, shared a stage, because you also did a power trip, which, if we could really quickly revisit, it was kind of about, it was about a job that you've left now.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I did a power trip about how much I fucking hated my corporate job. I worked for a call center. It was like a financial company, and it was fucking whack. My degree's in journalism, so like, you know, I like doing weird shit and like writing and like not talking on phones. So I decided to do a power trip about how much I fucking hated it, and I was just like, yo, and I say that now, if you work at a call center, if you work a 9 to 5 like that, I am here for you. It's gonna be okay, and you will get through this shit. And yeah, it was really a great release for me. And then I quit, so it was like, I feel like that was kind of the motivation. Like,
yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Shit.
Okay, so I'm fascinated about that. To clarify, Power Trip was a PowerPoint series exploring the performative possibilities of the Power Trip, the PowerPoint medium that was happening at GPC. But the way you did it was really great. It was because you sort of made the space your own, because not only did you have like a bottle of champagne that you sort of like uncorked on the stage and were like sharing with people, but you also had like music that you were playing through the whole thing and like kind of talking over, which I thought was really great.
Yeah, in college I like just would listen to a bunch of dope music and always have to do presentations, and I was always cool with my professor, so I would just be like, let me just play this dope track, you will love it, and that's like how that started. So.
Right, it was a good like,
they didn't always love it, but
you know, it wasn't like too sterile. It was like,
thanks.
you did a great job of making the space your own. So, which I want to return to that idea, but I'm also sort of super interested in artists' relationship to work. And your relationship in particular to, you know, the job that maybe gives you money versus the job that, or the work that makes your, you know, makes your heart feel good or whatever.
Yeah.
But, so I was wondering, since you've left that job, could you describe your current work?
Yeah, I'm doing a year of service at AmeriCorps. That sounds so fucking good to say too, it's funny. And I don't know why, but, so it's the Public Allies program, if you know about that, shit's tight. And I'm placed at Partners in Housing, which is an organization that houses people that have been chronically homeless or like lived below the poverty line, experienced a bunch of fucked up trauma in their lives. And we house them. There's 12 buildings around Center Township. So I do community life. And yeah, I plan like events and shit, like financial literacy, or like we had a zine making thing. And actually I didn't lead it. I make zines, FAF print zines, and someone else contacted us, like, can we do zine workshop? And I was like, fuck yeah, you can. And that was real cool because I got to see these people like kind of forget about their trauma and just like do art. And so for me, that was like really fucking great.
Yeah.
Can I like sip your
Of course.
drink?
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah.
Run on.
No. Get the drink. Yeah. No, that definitely does seem like sort of an about face kind of on your work, and maybe, it seemed like at the time you were kind of absorbing some oppositional energy from doing a job that you hated versus now you do a job that seems to be pretty meaningful and kind of like, and I wonder how that influences your artwork or your, creative output and how that's different.
Oh yeah, and I also forgot, I bartend at the Chatterbox. I'm actually going there right after this. So I will say, so the call center was in Carmel. So being away, that shit, first of all, that fucking sucked in general, because you gotta deal with a bunch of aggro-ass white dudes who are hate their lives anyway, but they want to kill you on the road, and it's it's not that deep, but so there was that, and then everybody hated their lives. It was funny, my biggest supporters at the call center about leaving were the people who worked there.
Oh look, it's so easy.
Aww, it's that easy. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Wow. I love you, State Street. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of PG in Evansville, but PG is super similar, and so I feel at home. I used to live in Evansville.
Woo! Not out of Evansville, actually.
From here, though.
Yeah.
But, what was I saying? Yes, so I got a lot of love from people who hated the job, too, that worked there.
Mm-hmm.
So they were so happy they celebrated me leaving. And so that was funny. And so now, working with people, seeing people, that really shapes, I don't know, how much happier I am in my work. And so, I don't know, I guess I used to just stay up all night writing anyway and, not sleep as much. And I don't know, I just love it even more because I get to, make an impact with people and be fuck, I feel great. I'm not, dreading life and now I need to write an article, but, I'm really fucking happy. Yeah, and then with bartending, it's funny because people are fucking crazy. So I just tweet a lot because
that's a wonderful way to
can't get in conversations or
yeah.
Yeah, people are just drunk and want to talk about race and shit. It's I'm not your expert. What I say might make you want to leave, so I'm gonna just tweet.
Where can we follow you on Twitter?
Oh yeah, follow me at Ari Attacks. Because Ari Attack is taken. Fuck that person.
At Ari Attack.
Yeah, Ari Attacks. So ARIATTACKS.
Cool. So we can have some access to your mind there. But.
Yeah, today I was talking about, I finished Insecure season 2 because I like to be real late. Oh my gosh, she chose fucking Daniel.
I don't know.
Okay, it's just, if you know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry if I ruined it. Anyway, but yeah.
Oh, so like I said, you were sort of third wave member of General Public
Shout
Collective.
out to Sass Burgers. Where's Heidi at?
Oh, she's around. Yeah. I'm curious, in our conversations about brick and mortar art spaces, I know that you guys were looking for a space, planning a space called Future Friends.
Shout out to all my Future Friends people.
And I wonder, would
You know who you are.
would you be comfortable giving an update on that project, or kind of talking about
it's moving.
where that's at? Okay.
Well, I don't want to give all that out, but
Okay.
but it's moving, and
Okay.
we're just super dedicated to finding a space because it's important to have, first of all, many art spaces in the city, but especially when they're artists of color. I think that there's a big divide, among black artists and white artists, as far as I know a lot of black people who might not even know where State Street's at. So it's I want people to be totally connected, and so I think more art spaces and more just people who have a lot of pulling people together, that's gonna really shape Indianapolis and help fight this bullshit ass gentrification. Fuck this shit. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I was gonna bring it back to you when you submitted your blurb for this project. I thought it was super bold because you said that you were plotting to destroy white supremacy, aka
right.
capitalism.
That's right.
And no small task to take on.
No.
And I was wondering, just what do you think? How best, how best refute capitalism as an artist?
Well, for me, so that looked like starting my own publication and being I didn't feel like I was represented. And to be honest, I didn't feel like you guys were represented either. So I started my own thing. And I wanted to welcome people like you, people that look like me, alternative ass fucking people, to have a space to just share their experience and just be documented, and so that's kind of where it starts. But I mean, what's fucked up. Don't subscribe to fucked up shit. know where you're getting your news from, know where you're getting your food from, know where you're getting your water from. We all get our air from a kind of fucked up place, so I feel like if you can kind of control everything else, you know where your money's going. You also know that we kind of like live in capitalism, so it's really hard. So don't be hard on yourself, you know, just try as much as you can. So one step at a time, even if you start with where your money's going. I mean, I bank with Fifth Third, they fucking suck. I do what I can.
No, and I like that you say that, just about like, it's hard work, it doesn't feel good, and then I noticed that there's always kind of like a mental health and kind of self-care dimension to the work that you put your energy behind.
Yeah. Oh,
and I just kind of wanted to bring that up and just as an observation and say like, how does that kind of inform what you make or how you know, I feel like you've done some kind of guided people through some mental health practice.
Thanks. Only because I feel like I reach out to my village, and my village, I feel like, reaches back. So it's like, I think self-care is so important. Like, if you go out all the time, you work all the time, you're always, like, outputting a lot. When are you inputting? When are you resting? So for me, it's, like, ultra important to even take, like, just, like, little things, like a scenic route, or, like, listening to a good song, or, like, just waking up a little earlier to try to take extra time in the morning, which is, like, hard as fuck. But, self-care is incredibly important because I feel like you're kind of clogged and you're not able to really put out like your pure thoughts, or at least just me. So for me, that looked like I didn't go out for a long time. Like I stayed at home a lot. I mean, I just now kind of started going out to shows, and I just pick where I put my energy, and I pick who I spend my energy around. And if people aren't enriching your life, it's like you really shouldn't spend your time around them. It just kind of shape where your energy goes. And so. Yeah, also, I shaved my head because I just wanted to do it, and it was like really healing for me because I was like, "Damn, bitch, you look good." So there was that.
Yeah, it does seem like, you know, if you're gonna have energy for that long fight, you definitely have to like take care of yourself and take care of your, you know, the people you care about mental health. So yeah, I appreciate that you're lending energy to that. But okay. So it's sort of related to this. When we got together the other day, you had kind of like a cute journal that had kind of like prompts like already written into it, and you like went to the bathroom and I was like, can I look at your like journal thing? And like yeah. So it was kind of like, I don't feel like it's too out of line to describe it as like an artist coloring book.
It is. It's like a preset. So it's a manifestation monthly like book or something, and I got it from like Homespun or some shit. I don't know how I ended up in there, but I did, and I got this book. And it was cool because it was the only thing I could find that really like spoke to me, but it was just like I just was feeling really spiritually clogged and not in a good place, and I wanted to like write out my manifestations, and it kind of had a cool little like drawing thing of like where you fit your manifestations every day for the month, and it's cool to kind of write out like, what do you want to bring in your life today? What do you want to not think about? You know?
And I feel like maybe I gave you like a little bit of shit. Like, just, I was like, I didn't think creative people needed these. Like, you know, like, maybe you don't like
she
need
shit
those.
all over.
It's like, I don't think, you know, I thought we had to make those. Like, but, so, but I do understand like the value of kind of having something as a springboard, or kind of having like a marked on page to kind of like respond to. So that's why I wanted to do overrated, underrated, correctly rated for you, just with like rules.
Rules?
Yeah.
Underrated.
Underrated?
Yeah. Fuck rules.
It doesn't. Okay.
Is this like that?
How indeed does it work?
It should be that way.
I don't know. I mean, the assumption is then that it's like, how do we feel like people feel about rules? I think they like them, so they're probably overrated, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
How do you feel about rules?
So they're overrated.
Okay.
Because so I just feel like you should just create your own fucking path. Like people are like, okay, here's an example. My little sister's in grad school, and it's a big deal. And I like got my fucking undergrad. I thought that was enough for them. No, it's not. And so it's just like, when are you gonna do this? And they call me by Ariana. Ariana, when are you gonna go get your master's? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm living my life. Like, I don't have kids. I get tattoos. Like, I bartend. Like, I'm writing shit. Like, I make my own rules. I determine what the fuck I do. I determine why I do it and when I do it and where I do it. And I feel like I've been doing a good job. So I feel like people just pay attention too much to, like, oh, well, I'm this age, so shouldn't I be doing this? And it's like, fuck no. You do your path, and that doesn't matter. Just because I do this, I just do that. But it doesn't mean it's right.
So I feel like this lines up with the thing of like, rules are cool as long as I make them myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mine. It's my way.
Right. Okay. Well, I like your rules. No, I think I'm excited about the work that you're doing in Indy. I'm excited to see how your projects take shape. Yeah, you always bring a lot of great energy to the city. So
thanks.
Yeah.
Just let me shout out the website.
Yeah, please.
FAFcollective.com. We print zines. We got a zine coming up this winter. So check us out. Also shout out to printtext, Ben and Janneane. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have much of a space to do shit before I got into GPC. So I fucking love you guys so much. I can't really see you. I assume you're right there. Okay. Because I was looking. Anyway, love you guys. And thanks for coming, y'all. Erin is the shit.
Thank you, Ari. We'll take a little break. We'll have, you can do whatever you do, and then I'll see you shortly. Bye.
Hey, how are you?
Kids, teens, adults all like it.
Hi guys, welcome back to Putty. Hey, we're being joined by cultural correspondent Michael Runge here to do our special calendar of events that we like to call What Do We Do? So this is the What Do We Do date night edition, because people have told me that Putty is a really good date night, which is super cute. I'm really happy to hear it. You know, that's what I do. I do it for you. I feel, just like, come here, we keep it early, you go to La Parada, you drink that marg, you talk about your insightful reflections with your special someone. And
what an interesting perspective on that thing that we
and just goes like that,
It's
and
so beautiful when you talk about art.
the rest of the night is up to you. So, Mike, what have you got on the calendar?
Okay, first up, we have the Pickled Peddler, you all know about that, is offering a 2-person's couples therapy session on Mass Ave. Pick from your themes. You have 3 themes. Cathartic, obsessive, or avoidant. Wear bright colors because there's going to be traffic.
Beep, beep, yeah. So Marsh is offering special parking lot sushi nights every Tuesday in November between 6 and 8. So picture this: room temp Bud Light, soy sauce in the cup holder, 99.1 on the radio. You get that sushi and you grow into what you will be at the 99.1.
I get it. Nothing gets my juices flowing like room temp sushi. If sushi is not your thing, you could always take 9 hits of acid. Check out Irvington's ongoing Ghost series. Cool Yard provides coffee, and $50 gets you a skull mug with a real hot mold wine in it. It's real. The mug isn't real, but the mold wine is real.
For the singles, or the would-be singles, Garfield Park Farmers Market is hosting Anonymous Encounters Day. The 3rd Saturday in December. You can download the hanky code at indieparks.org. So just know what you're flagging when you're flagging Black Gamer.
If these events aren't quite your style, you could always catch an Indians game and see what you've got to do to get on the Jumbotron. Maybe cut each other's bangs.
Who cut your bangs, Mike?
That's a low blow.
Or you could always go to the next Putty.
Yeah.
The next episode will be Wednesday, December 6th, here at State Street Pub. Door 7, show 7:30. guests will be Nathaniel Russell, Brian James Priest, Bloomington artist Abe Bowden, and musical guest Bad Psychic. So
Super sexy.
yeah, it'll be really sexy, and I hope to see everyone there. Cool, great. Okay, great. As always, if you have events that should go on our cultural calendar, you can just contact me personally. Are we ready for more interviews? Okay. My next guest is the director of exhibitions at the Indianapolis Art Center. He's a colleague, but he's a friend. He has personal practice, and I've been his intern. Let's please warmly welcome Kyle Herrington. Hi, Kyle. Grab a mic-o. I noticed you were sitting in that aisle seat, which I advise people not to sit in case, like, we wanted to do any, like, movement work. And just
Well,
go
Ari
under the
told me
crowd.
to break the rules, so.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I'm mad that you blew up my spot, that you were my intern. That was my bombshell.
Let's please
Really
go on.
easy.
No, I've been an unpaid intern more than once, but you're not the first. You're not the last. But no, would you please provide context for how we know each other?
So I don't remember exactly when I met you. You were just kind of in the ether of my social networks when I first moved to Indianapolis in 2006. And somewhere along the line, this was early on in my days at the Art Center, either it was a conversation you and I had or somebody else had, but you ended up being my intern, which was very odd for me because I was pretty low man on the totem pole at that point, and it was sort of like comical that I had an intern at that point.
No, it's comical to be an intern.
Right. And, you know, it was probably super unprofessional in terms of like the hijinks that we got into, you know, walking the Monon Trail and saying that we were fixing sculptures when really I told Erin that we were looking for dead bodies, that sort of stuff. So
I just remember when you were teaching me how to like sort of pack work, you'd say, "I like to watch the light leave its eyes."
yeah, that was when we were packing up painting. You know, as a curator and working in an institution, packing up artwork is not the funnest thing. So I like to do fun little games to help pass the time and do that sort of stuff.
You also would just tell me, like, you'd recap sort of obsessive for me, like My Strange Addiction episode, which was really great because I would really rather never watch them, but when you tell me about them, it was really joyful. So.
Yeah, it was nice to have sort of an audience of one in terms of, you know, it made me kind of not hate myself as much for watching those shows, so it was nice to recap them to you.
I had also, and asked you that question, like, it took me back to kind of explore how I even met you, because I feel like I've known you for so long, and I was certainly aware of your work really early on. Like, you were making these, and I'm sure it was through our mutual friend Lisa Berlin Jackson, but you were making these paintings early in your career that were like kind of these collage oil paintings with different pieces of like kind of dark text next to like abstracted landscapes with kind of like bits of like neon, like geometry and stuff. But there was one that was like teenage runaways might have the right idea, and I remember really responding to that one. But you also made this piece early on that is like my favorite public sculpture of all the public sculptures. Like, it's my favorite, but it's like a public plaque that says this is a place for teenagers to smoke.
I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that you haven't like surpassed it, but I do feel
I don't know, it's pretty good.
I
pretty
do
happy
feel like
with
it's
it
the
still.
best case scenario of public art. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't know what I was doing. I went to school for painting, and I just had this idea, especially when I first moved to Indianapolis. I was really throwing myself into the art scene and trying to get involved in all these different areas. And one of the areas that I was in was meeting people that were doing public art and the Indianapolis Arts Council and all this sort of stuff, and really just looking at public art and being really perplexed about it and not understanding a lot about it, and sort of like, I'm going to go ahead and respond to this in a way that I want to do. And so I taught myself basically how to make it. I would say it's certainly fugitive materials. It's not by any means
It's not going to
technically sound.
withstand. It's not going to last into eternity.
It's in my backyard right now. So
Oh, good.
I think that,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm glad it's in
time
school.
will tell.
Yeah. So Kyle, you have your hands in many projects. In addition to being like I said, the director of exhibitions at the Art Center. You also maintain your personal practice, and I'm really curious kind of what conversations you hope to provoke through your personal artwork, and then kind of what you hope to provoke through your curatorial work, and how those things differ or overlap.
I mean, I think for my personal work, I'm really interested in sort of outliers of society. I've always been a really big viewer of television programs. I sort of grew up with television, and that was sort of my best friend. I moved around all over the country growing up, so that was sort of the constant when I was going a lot of places. And so I really was drawn to shows like Ricky Lake or Maury Povich. John Waters is a huge influence of mine. These people that are sort of trash human beings was something that I was really interested in, because we're not allowed to act like that, but they act like sort of clowns or fodder for these different mediums on television or movies. So that was something that I was really interested in, is taking those characters and storylines and putting them sort of in a fine art environment in a gallery space. So that's something that sticks with me, I think. And I'm really interested in showcasing all of these different points of view and people that basically don't belong in sort of like cultural institutions, I guess.
So that's
my personal practice, I would say.
With your personal practice, and when that sort of wraps around into your curatorial process, it seems like you are interested in kind of facilitating a conversation, not altogether removed from that. So do you want to talk about that? Kind of like, what conversations do you hope to provoke?
Well, I think, with my own work is sort of plucking these different personality types that might not otherwise be heard and putting them on canvas, whereas my curatorial work is, I'm a really big fan of emerging artists. I'm a really big fan of sort of sniffing out artists that nobody knows about or maybe don't have opportunities otherwise to show, and really giving them a platform to showcase their work. I think working at an institution like one that I work at, it's a really big responsibility, and it's kind of like scary at times, because I think, people think of formal art institutions and they think of, okay, well, you have to have these artists that are well known, and who's going to come in, and what's the draw for the exhibition, and what are the numbers, and all of that kind of stuff. But I want to take the leap to support, young emerging artists, maybe people that are doing something a little bit experimental, and people that don't necessarily have that already established voice or platform to show their work. And I want to put them alongside of established artists and people that are doing lots of different things. So when I'm curating a show, generally around an idea, I want to have lots of different entry points into that idea. I want to maybe take somebody that's not well known, or somebody that's doing something super experimental, next to somebody that's doing something super traditional, next to somebody that's doing something sort of in the middle. I think it's really important when you're exploring concepts and themes as a curator to exhaust all of the perspectives and opinions on that theme or topic, because I think that's sort of the charge as a curator, at least that's the charge I give myself.
So you're not just showing work you like?
No. I show work that I don't like a lot, because I think that not that everything that I show I don't like, I don't want to say that, but it's important for me to think critically about the work that I'm showing, the audience for that particular work, and especially somewhere like the Indianapolis Art Center, there's a lot of different audiences that are coalescing in those halls. We work with a lot of people that are professional artists, we work with people that are hobbyists, even though I hate that term, and everything in between. So there's going to be people that come into any given show and like one thing, hate another thing, like this one part, really be disgusted or offended by this other part. And I like that gelling of different parts of the art world. Like, it kind of like gets me off. I really like it. It's really it's fun and interesting for me to see. Going back to sort of John Waters and thinking of when the normies are around the weirdos, that's something that's really interesting to me, and seeing that interaction, that dynamic of...
But it's so important for the normies to be around the weirdos.
Totally, yeah, I think it's super important, and I think that they can really inform and influence each other without knowing it, and that's something that's kind of cool for me to see behind the scenes.
I think that's a little, I think the Art Center gets passed over a little bit just for its import, the strange... juxtaposition of people and audiences and work that is shown there. And so you are in a really unique situation, and I think as other galleries, as alt spaces ebb and flow, and as institutions become maybe less approachable, the Art Center continues to take a more important role. So
it's a really interesting place to work, because I hear this phrase a lot and it drives me absolutely insane, is, oh, you guys are a hidden gem. And
Sleeper.
and I can't stand it. Now, that being said, I have a very complicated relationship with the Art Center, too. Before I worked there, I didn't even go in the place. For some reason, like, I always tell people this, before I even went in there, I thought it was, like, quilts. I don't know why. I was just like, this is, like, Quilt Barn 2006. This is what this is. I have no interest in going there. I don't care. No, it's not my scene. And then, for whatever reason, I kind of got my foot in the door and really was seduced by the mission. And now, as a curator, I'm seduced by the freedom that I have to put together all these different shows and engage all these different types of audiences. So it's something that, like, I'm very lucky to do.
Yeah, you do it well. So I'm curious, and I've asked this throughout the night, but since Indianapolis has become sort of a linchpin in your own creative practice, how you feel like it informs you, informs or affects what you make.
I mean, for me, it's a very interesting cross-section that I live in. I work with a lot of touring, professional, working artists, but I also work with a lot of people that are hobbyists or people that don't have any interest in being working artists necessarily. So I'm sort of at the crosshairs of all of that, and I think that's a strength that Indianapolis has. I think it's a fairly democratic city in terms of if you're ambitious, if you're interested, and you kind of, like, push your way through, then I think that you can have opportunities here, which is not something that I think can be said of a lot of other cities. But then sometimes I get stuck in these situations where I do talk to people from other cities and they're like, oh, you're in Indianapolis, you're doing that? Or even as a curator, something I do a lot of times is I cold curate. So I just contact artists. I have this really thick black book that I just keep artist names in, like some dirty secret diary type of thing. And when I'm having shows, I'm like flipping through them and picking these artists out and just completely cold contacting them. Because I'm not a great networker and I'm not somebody that's good at like schmoozing. So I'll just email them and say, hey, I'm from Indianapolis Art Center, I have this idea for a show, I've been following your work, and they're like, whoa, I never knew Indianapolis had that, and I looked at your website, and it's actually really cool, and so that's kind of nice, I've only been turned away once from artists that I've cold contacted, which is really a nice thing, and people from other cities speak so highly of Indianapolis once they come here. We just had a show where there was an artist from Canada, and he literally spent 2 days just driving around the city, and he was just like, this place is awesome, they've got really awesome things. That being said, I don't want us as a city to get too complacent in that either. So I think it's important to like move forward as a city, but also realize that like we can be legitimate too.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's a place that supports experiments and supports people. If you put in the work, if you put in the energy, that's all it takes, and to sort of reflexively have a built-in audience because people are hungry for it. But versus other cities where you just have to prove more or something. But, you still have to, be an unpaid intern a couple times, turn the work or whatever
There's not
that
much
way.
money
But,
in the city.
Yeah. So I was also thinking about, we were kind of having we had a little bit of a heated discussion about, this is something that I was excited that you feel like is an important part of your curatorial practice, just that objects are important, and so not to skirt too far away back from the importance of objects in art or the importance of images, which is something that I'm sort of moving into a divergent direction from. But
I've thought about it a lot since we had that conversation about objects and how they're just.
I do hope some of your images. No, they don't certainly do, because you look great. They made me stuff. They made me want to bite it. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I'm not sure why objects are so important to me, and I was thinking about it, and I almost wonder if it's some weird, latent homosexual trope of I have to leave a legacy, and it's never going to be children, so I have to put something out in the world for.
Name.
Yeah, aliens have to discover something to learn about humanity, so I'm going to make these things for them to
make
take,
these
sort of
weird
thing. Right.
fake comets or whatever.
Right. I don't know. I think a lot about living in that line between art history and contemporary art and working with emerging artists too. Is we're studying all of this stuff that the remains of Pompeii were washed up, and it's who knows if it was just some saying some sassy gay said that just got smoked over by this volcano, and everyone's wise, it's so wise.
I think history bears that out. I think there are some sassy gay slogans on.
Right.
Cool. So we need the relics to tell our people the story or whatever.
Right. They need to inform us of this.
Even if they're starscapes that say "you bitch."
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so on the notion of you, bitch, and also kind of in the wake of you did a show at GPC that was called Kyle Herrington is the worst person ever or something.
Yeah,
Correct
worst
me if
person
I'm
in the
wrong.
world, I think.
Kyle Herrington is the worst person in the world. And could you talk about the work that you had in that show?
Yeah, so the name of that show was derived from a friend that, you know, he had just gotten an iPhone and was talking to Siri and saying, "Oh, Kyle is the worst." And I said, "Oh, do you mean Kyle Herrington is the worst?" And so then that was kind of like a running joke. But at that time I was really interested in social media and the internet and people putting these sort of statements and like really sensationalist things when they're in a mood out to the public. And then again, sort of that idea of like retroactively finding them as like archaeologists of like, oh, this person had this, oh, what an interesting state, you know what I mean? So I really like the idea of taking these statements and putting them in sort of this clinical, really sterile environment and seeing what kind of conversations those would facilitate from somebody that wasn't super close to the situation.
Right, so it's sort of hot temperature responses in a cool temperature or something, and we're analyzing them and we're picking them
and they were really fun pieces to watch people look at. So I kind of would, you know, background like as a spy hiding behind a bush kind of style, watch people look at them. And so some people would laugh at them, some people would be like, oh, this is stupid, this isn't art. Some people would be like, oh, this is great. And I like that, maybe that's a curator in me, I like that like layer of removal to sort of like be academic about like, oh, okay, this is how they're being responded to. So.
But it was often kind of quotes that were in the voice of another person.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
often,
like super appropriated things that I heard on, you know, going back to Ricky Lake, things that I heard on talk shows, things that I saw on the internet, things that I heard on TV shows. Gay culture, like gay bars was a big, huge thing. It's a gold mine of those kind of quotes and things. Right. Just, girl, my ear is tuned. What are you saying? Okay, let's, yeah, that sort of thing.
Right. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to kind of pull this into my overrated, underrated, correctly rated for you.
Okay.
So, do you remember how to play it? Overrated, underrated, correctly rated. And we'll do 1, 2, 3, shoot, and you'll say your thing.
Right.
So, for you, it is indie art scene gossip. Overrated, underrated, correctly rated. Feel like you know what you're gonna. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Okay.
Underrated.
So Kyle, I noticed that you said that. Kyle, I noticed that you said that indie art scene gossip is underrated, and I'm curious about what value art scene gossip could possibly have.
So I'm in a really interesting position in the city. I feel like I came here as an artist with my own artistic practice and sort of happened along my arts administration curatorial career along the way. So I sort of like Venn diagram overlap two really interesting circles where yourself, Lisa Berlin, a lot of the GPC people, I've been friends with you and sort of known you guys for a really long time. But I also find myself in sort of this arts administrator, like knowing a lot of curators in town, a lot of preparators, people that sort of know the politics of things, and I'm kind of in the middle of it. So it's a really interesting way, so I hear the gossip on both ends of it, and it's a really interesting way for me to enact things that I need to be changed. You know, I can hear the artist being pissed off at some certain curator because they've done something. I can hear the curators talk about how they'll never work with a specific artist because they act like this. And I like to sort of meet in the middle of that and be like, okay, how can we facilitate a conversation to uplift both sides of it? And that's something I think Indianapolis really needs a lot more of is, you know, these polarized groupings of people in the art scene, I think can really learn from each other and build upon their experiences. That doesn't mean to say that you have to like sell out and totally fall into this, but I think a lot about like IDATA lately and how they're dismantling. And I've wondered too, like how could that have been avoidable, right? And I think sort of like there's the old guard, right, and their way of doing things, and then there's sort of like the young newcomers, and they're like, we don't want to follow their rules at all, we don't want to do what they're doing, and then the old guard is like, well, they don't want to listen to our rules, so we're not going to work with them. And I think it's really important to hear those diametrically opposed voices and maybe like go in the same direction together. And I don't think that you have to like totally integrate into one demographic necessarily, or like give up what you're doing, but I think it's really important to like hear them, collaborate, and like uplift together, if that makes sense. And I think gossip is a really, for me at least, art scene gossip is a really good way to hear what's going wrong. because I'm kind of like a chameleon in that way. Like I can hang out with the artists and they're like, oh, you know, and then I can hang out with the administrators and hear the other side of it. So
Nice.
a little bit of a spy, I would say.
And maybe you can bring that information to a group to whom it's pertinent or something. Or
Yeah, I think it's really
you can
important.
act as a liaison, and that does bear out in, you know, just as a curator and even as an artist who sort of collages, that you're sort of mixing together things harmoniously, or you know, identifying things that make sense in one place or whatever. But
Yeah, I think it's an important, I mean, there's almost like a responsibility that I have if I'm hearing and I'm privy to these different conversations to facilitate some sort of dialogue about that. So.
Yeah. Cool. I like thinking about positive applications for gossip and kind of, you know, what information might be considered marginal that maybe when centered could actually be valuable, or, and then also what you're saying, kind of the idea of like, just means building a history, building kind of like listening to the voices of people who've actually done it before,
Right.
and just sort of assimilating those perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Anything you're excited about lately? Anything on the horizon? What art doesn't suck?
What art doesn't suck?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think you get some energy from being a rebel, but what do you like
Maybe.
lately?
Like I said, I'm really excited. I think we're a really interesting place in this city, and I'm really excited to help sort of like shepherd in where I can, sort of like the new wave of artists, and sort of be a resource for them, and also be a bridge to the old guard, like I said, because I do get to see that perspective of it too.
So facilitating that conversation.
Facilitating that, I mean, I will say, like, I've said many times, and I don't know if I believe it or not, but sometimes I say that I feel like I'm a better curator than I am an artist. You know, and so I am excited about curatorial endeavors and things like that. You know, of course, I've got some shows at the Art Center that are coming up through the next couple of years and things like that. But I really am excited in being a champion for artists, and I think that it's a unique perspective that I have because I did start out as an artist, and I can sort of see that side of things. And so, you know, as naive and cheesy as it sounds, just supporting artists and helping shepherd in the new guard in terms of like where we're going as a city is what I'm excited about.
I am going to hold your feet to the fire a little bit and ask you to just like name one artist whose work you're excited about that you think people should look at, or that is energizing to you in Indiana.
Oh, jeez. There's this artist that just graduated here named Gustavo Uriel, I believe is his name, and he had a piece in the show we had, Curio Cabinet, and it was just, so Curio Cabinet was a show that we had that was kind of like a broad call for entries and artists that I had reached out to, and it was sort of an idea of, you know, cabins of curiosity and that sort of stuff, and he had this beautiful oil painting of like a sprawled out figure like looking at an iPhone with the phone glare just like staring at his face. And I was really captivated by it, mostly because I hadn't thought of like the theme of the show in like those terms, and so yeah, I was really excited about that. But I know it's sort of a cop out, but
No.
I really like so many different types of work that it's hard for me to pick. Well, you know.
No, the painting was beautiful, and I know it made its way to the card, and I know it was also your way of pushing your gay agenda. But, yeah.
Right, yes, yeah, of course. That's the other thing. I have to, you know, put that out there. Is I do have a specific gay agenda. Everything that I show and facilitate is to move that agenda. Don't get it twisted. If you'd like to go ahead and call the Star and let them know that's what's going on. You know, let's just be real about it. So.
Kyle?
That was feedback that they got from somebody. It was sort of a little inside joke.
Always listen to feedback, yeah. Feedback that I got here, I don't feel like I said. Someone was like, oh, you have an art talk show, so that means, like, you change your set every month, right? And I was like, do you want to? Don't get ahead of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I think something that I found is like the more involved you are in the city, the more like people come out of nowhere and like surprise you with things that you never in a million years would have like thought that you would hear ever. But I kind of like get a thrill out of that too. Like it's one of those like dirty, guilty pleasures that I like, where it's like I cannot believe you said that to me, but I'm kind of like into the fact that like you said that. You know what I mean? Even if it's like super offensive things, it's sort of, you know, it's again with that like gossip being a positive thing, and maybe I don't know, or maybe I'm just like a glutton for punishment, and you know that's why I work in a nonprofit organization. I don't know.
Cool. I hope people come forward and say a lot of weird stuff to you tonight.
I will keep my little black book out and open and ready. So.
And thank you for your work, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you.
My final guest of the evening is my musical act. She's been involved with many projects, the Tsunamis, Louie Louie, but tonight she's performing a simply Sharlene birdsong, and I hope Sharlene is around. Can you please welcome her to the stage? Hi, Sharlene. Do you wanna clonk around a microphone?
Yeah.
Cool. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Nice.
So what's the name of the? Okay, you're just performing a Sharlene birdsong tonight?
Yeah, I thought that would be easier. Yeah.
But okay, so I've mostly invited solo performers onto the program in the past, and I invited you as a solo performer, but I was under the misconception because in the past you sort of had a performance identity where you performed with your sister.
Yeah, I did. My little sister is 10 years old, and she just went to a lot of shows at Vibes and sort of like saw all the performances going on. And we had like some noise show, I think, and she wanted to like hide under a sheet and play a sine wave generator. And so I was like, yeah, just like look at me, and if I start to like groove faster, then you groove faster. And she played with me twice doing the solo thing. She really liked it.
So that was like a previous incarnation of that solo project.
Yes, yeah. I didn't bring her tonight.
That's right. She's not over 21. What was that project called?
Grass SM6.
Okay. Cool. Like I said, you've worked with many different projects in many different incarnations. Is Louie Louie your main band right now?
Yeah, Louie Louie plays a lot of shows. We're playing tomorrow, and I also play with a newer band called Service, and we've just done live shows. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about Louie Louie, and also kind of like about these Tsunamis, because it seems like there's kind of been this spirit of the bands that you've worked with, that they've kind of integrated like classic rock elements, often performing covers.
Yeah.
And anecdotally, when I was in LA last week, I got to go to this amazing bar called the Dresden, where there was this like lounge act called Elaine and Morty, who had just been like performing. Had been performing there for 40 years.
Yes.
And they've been
They were on that movie with Vince Vaughn.
They're in Swingers.
Yes, and they did that Staying Alive cover. Yeah. That's awesome. I didn't know that's who you saw.
No, that's totally what I saw. But so they played, and that made me think about kind of like just the nature of not covers but standards.
That's so funny.
And I wanted to talk to you about, because if you could talk about covers that your bands have played in the past, and kind of like integrating like kind of the history of rock into a contemporary project that you're doing. Like, I thought that would be a little bit interesting.
That song, seeing that movie made me want to cover Staying Alive, and like I never really got into that song, but I don't know, it was like her vocals or sort of like Yoko Ono type, like,
oh my god,
yodel screaming. That's what I listen to. I listen to like old school popular music and old school rock, and my friends do too, and sort of like finding little gems that we connected to. We always tried to integrate that, I always felt like I had to do a cover in a band,
mm-hmm.
at least like one to have, in your back pocket. So just any song that we connected to.
What are some covers you've played in the past?
We've done like standards, like What I Say. I mentioned that to you earlier. Stormy Weather is another standard I thought of that I saw on a list. I was like, oh, I played Stormy Weather, which was in a musical. I Want to Be Your Dog. I think everyone's covered that.
That's really a standard at this point, I think.
standard.
Yeah, it's just a cover as a standard.
Shangri-La's, the Give 'Em a Great Big Kiss
Yeah.
song. I like that more than like their really popular songs.
Yeah.
Tons of old school rock and roll. And Louie, you know, we do a lot of covers, so it's a lot of soul music and we're doing a lot of reggae right now. Alton Ellis songs, which I really love too, which I think a lot of reggae songs are standards.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there are any songs that are always good covers, in your humble opinion.
I don't think so. I don't think it's anybody. You can mess it up, you know.
Everyone, there's a song that anyone could mess up. I mean,
yes,
anyone has an opportunity to mess up any song.
I think so. Yeah, because even I Want to Be Your Dog is, you know, like one of the simplest songs, and you've seen it done wrong so many times. So I think you can mess up any cover song.
Will the songs that you'll be performing for us tonight be covers or standards or more of your material?
Yeah, it's just my material, so you can't judge me against anything else.
Wouldn't dare hold you up to that. Could you talk a little bit about this current project?
Basically, I'm exploring my rig, to say, like, all my gear, and experimenting with sounds to use in other places and other bands, experimenting with vintage gear and pedals. I have really gotten crazy about pedals, especially using a sine wave generator that's just like such a solid sound, that you can just finding out what pure manipulation pedals have, you know, what kind of power they have, just with a sine wave. So I've put words to songs and played a little bit of guitar, but mainly it's me sort of discovering what my gear can do right now.
Sharlene, tell us what a sine wave generator is.
A sine wave generator, it makes noise. It makes this like a same tone, like a tone when you press your phone when you dial a number. Like that is just that plain wave is a sine wave, just a blank tone. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And then bend it, you manipulate it? Or,
Yeah.
Cool. You're gonna do that?
Yeah, right in front of you.
Today?
Yeah.
That'll be amazing. Do you want to do it right now?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay, let's move all this stuff out of the way and you can do it. Cool, yeah.
You're muted right now. You're muted.
I saw you.
Wait, I'm eating up the bandwidth. I said, what am I doing?
You're getting super shy up in here.
So you're like, oh, sorry, my connection's bad. I'm like, it's my fault.
It's all your fault.
So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm not on Wi-Fi. I should be.
Not on the Wi-Fi?
Wait, do you know the password?
Yeah, so rule 7. Go without it. Don't need a Wi-Fi. It's delicious. That went right back to your right. Speak it's right next to where the prediction is.
Oh, yeah.
I can just do it through my amp.
Okay. Are you plugged into that direct out?
Yeah.
Is the sampler plugged in?
No.
Okay.
So we started?
Just so we can check the level. I thought it
Yeah.
Cool. This one? No? This one? Jim? Hi. Yay! Thank you so much for coming to Putty! It was so good. I want to thank Ben and Janneane Blevins. I want to thank Ari Attack. I want to thank Kyle Herrington. I want to thank Sharlene Birdsong. I want to thank the tireless and often unthanked crew, including Justin Brown, who's shooting this, including Jesseka Dunn, who's shooting this, including Jesseka Likens, who styled me, including Cinnamon, Rose, and Rose Parry, who styled the stage, and other people who helped write, who helped throw their energy at this project. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. Thank you so much. Come to the next show, December 6th at State Street Pub. See you there.